Woke up this morning, looked in the mirror and said, ew. But then I said, I got a basketball Jones. I got a basketball Jones. I got a basketball Jones. Oh, baby. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Right here on the Fairfax Sports Report, 75% of the basketball season in the books right now. That means somebody's halfway to the promised land, and then somebody's 25% somewhere else and whatnot. And we'll break it down here for you. To help me break it down, of course, is Dan Rubin of the Northern Virginia Journal. I'm Nate Lewis, bouncing around all over the place. We got everything for you, basketball, hockey, and whatever else may fly through the air right here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Well, yes, indeed, folks. Welcome back once again to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm Nate Lewis. Glad to be back with you again as we got a whole lot of stuff here. We're going to give you a backdoor lob, and you better slam it home right here, all right? So just stay tuned because we got a whole lot of good stuff coming up for you. And to help us with that good stuff, of course, is our partners here on the Fairfax Sports Report. We couldn't do it without them. And that is, of course, CCI Screen Printing, one of them there. Strong Arm Sports. And the U.S. Sports Online Strength and Conditioning System. Serious programs for serious athletes. www.myworkoutprogram.com. Trainer code 901701. And, of course, the House of Pain. When you do that workout, put a little attitude into your workout with the House of Pain. Of course, be sure to visit our website for all kinds of stuff where you can order copies of this Fairfax Sports Report and other stuff at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Well, once again, I'm Nate Lewis, joined by Dan Rubin of the Northern Virginia Journal. And Dan, first let's start a little bit with football. Of course, this is big National Signing Day all over the country. Everybody's excited because some of their favorite players, some of the people who are in the families of some of these players are certainly getting excited as well because they got a free college education. And some pretty big names out there in Fairfax County, of course, signed with some pretty big schools.
I think the usual schools have sent the usual types of guys out to the major Division I ranks. Yesterday we learned that Chase Anastasio, star multi-threat for Robinson, is committed to Notre Dame. Blake Schubert, who was kind of waffling between Villanova, Penn, and Stanford, chose Villanova. John Kinzer, who of course committed, the star tight end, committed during the early period to Virginia Tech. And Danny Prentice, kind of an interesting story, was kind of all set to go to UNLV and got a call late last night from Al Grove, Virginia, to say that scholarship had opened up for him, and he took the offer. Mm-hmm. Also a couple guys from Centerville who committed during the early period. Matt Welsh, offensive tackle, and Brett Warren, who will be joining Blake Warren at Virginia Tech, both of them, and really a host of other guys who have a chance to go on and make this region proud.
Yeah, of course, we're talking about the players who sit out up there with the press conferences and whatnot, but there's going to be a whole lot more happening long after this as well. Some of those second-tier players are going to be signing as well.
Well, also, National Signing Day really only refers to the guys who are going Division I, mm-hmm. And there's plenty of levels of football, 1, AA, 2, and 3, where people from this area go on and have great careers and get a chance to play football and get a good education. So those don't have quite the stringent deadlines in terms of time, but still football careers ahead for many guys from this area.
Ask you one guru question. Is there a school out there? I know Virginia Tech always does well around here, but are there schools who really scored big here in the area?
I mean, I think Virginia Tech tends to do real well around here. I mean, sporadically. I mean, I know Notre Dame had Chase Anastasio very, very high on their list. And Virginia Tech also had him very high on their list. That's probably the first guy that's gotten away from them, Virginia Tech, from Robinson in quite some time. They really had kind of a pipeline down there. But, it's impressive. Guys from around here usually have the guts to go and play in other parts of the country, which is nice to see.
All right. We will certainly enjoyed your exploits on the field here now in the high schools in the area. Of course, we'll be looking forward to many of those players playing on Saturday afternoons. And speaking of, exploits, of course, a lot of exploits happen right now in boys basketball. As I mentioned earlier, about 75% of the season is done in most areas. The front runners, we've been talking about them all season long. There's some people out there, however, that are going to need some help to get a pretty high seed in their respective tournaments.
I think some of the districts are looking very much almost locked up. Herndon's basically locked up the first seed if they haven't actually clinched it. And the Concord district, people also know this: when you win the first seed of the regular season, that gets you an automatic region tournament berth, mm-hmm. And you automatically a bye in the first round of the district tournament, which is equally important. The National District Falls Church has kind of run away from the rest of the pack there. It looks like We pretty much locked that up. In the Patriot District, it's probably going to come down to Tuesday night. Hayfield and T.C. Williams play. West Springfield's kind of lurking in the background with a good record. And then the Liberty District kind of gotten topsy-turvy at this point. Woodson had run away with it to only has one loss, but Madison has really been kind of the surprising team. They've now won 3 in a row over Langley, Fairfax, and Woodson, kind of the preseason favorites. So it's going to be a real scramble in the Liberty District. It's probably the most competitive district, at least at the top right now, in terms of battling for those 2, 3, 4 seeds. I think Woodson still has to be considered the favorite.
All right. Now, amongst those, again, we have our old favorites there, T.C. Williams, Hayfield, you mentioned them as well. Who are amongst, if you were to narrow it down to maybe 5 teams in the region who are probably amongst the best?
Well, to this point, the best team in the northern region has been Herndon. They're the only boys basketball team in this region without a loss to not region competition. Their one loss came to a very tough C.H. Flowers team out of Prince George's County in the Denby Holiday Classic down in over the Christmas break in the Norfolk area. And I think T.C. Williams would be my second choice, just because they've been playing so well lately, and they're kind of peaking at the right time. You can't count out Hayfield. Hayfield's only got 2 losses. The rest of the group, I think Woodson, I was very impressed with Woodson the other night when they played Herndon. I know you guys were there. I'm not sure they have enough weapons to compete with some of the top-tier teams, but they definitely have. They play a very disciplined style and were very impressive and could certainly threaten. I think South Lakes, if they can put it together on any given night, is a very tough team as well.
Yep, W.T. Woodson, like you, I was impressed with them as well. Of course, when you start talking about those top-tier teams, defense is what really wins it, and in that particular game, Herndon had the better defense.
They did, and also Herndon just has so many weapons. I said to one of the other reporters I was there with before the game that I really felt Woodson could score 65 points, but could they keep Herndon under 80? And the answer was no. The game got close for a little bit. I never really got the sense personally that Woodson was going to take the lead in that game. But Woodson is a very good team. We've talked about it before. Senior leaders, all 5 senior starters, and they have a great player. I think the jury may have been out whether Jose Oliveira was a good player or a great player. I think he showed in that game. He is a great player, definitely one of the 2 or 3 best players in this region right now, without question.
All right. Let's take a look at our game of the week. I think we're going to have that coming up. Langley at Fairfax. Do we have that? Yes? Okay, thank you very much. Right there. And
obviously, PJ.
Huge game for both teams. These were kind of the 2, along with Woodson, 2 of the teams that everyone expected to challenge for the
three-pointer
Liberty District title.
Yes!
Langley, the beginning of Langley's season may have been taken with a grain of salt for one reason, because their best interior player, Michael Hausman, a 6'6" center who's committed to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, was out with a knee injury. What you see right there is Darren Dixon hitting a jump shot. The nice thing about Langley is they're starting to get contributions from guys besides Monica and Michael Hausman. Langley is a team that, if they do get it together, especially with the way the brackets are this year, I'm not sure if people are familiar with this, the way the region tournament works. You're matched with a certain district in the first round of every region tournament. So the top 2 seed, the top seed from the Patriot and the top seed in the Concord right now, everything held serve, would meet in semifinals, and the top seed from the National would meet the top seed from the Liberty in the other semifinals. So the Liberty District champion has a real chance to get back to the Final Four this year, which they haven't been in a while. And Fairfax is a team that made the Final Four last year. It's kind of fallen on hard times a bit lately. Hasn't kind of won a big game in quite some time, but they have a lot of talent. A perimeter trio of Aaron Montgomery, Gabe Young, and Marlon Wigginton, and they've also gotten a real nice production lately out of Billy Kim, who's now running the point for them, and in this game had 4 3-pointers.
Yeah. Now, granted, this is a highlight package, and of course, there's a highlight for you right there if you want a headache.
Not for Fairfax.
But
number 23.
Yeah, but one of the things that's glaring about Langley right now is that they shoot very well and they play pretty good defense too.
I'll tell you what, Langley hasn't had a chance to have their entire team kind of on the floor for as many games as a lot of other teams, but they are a team that has everything. They have a point guard in Tommy Wilson. They have a great shooting guard in Will Monica. Darren Dixon's kind of that swing man who can guard, another great perimeter player. They have Josh Carr to kind of do it all down low, and on the perimeter, he always the point of their diamond press. And you got a guy like Hausman inside that always helps.
All right. Well, that's to be our next graph. We're going to take a look at this in a moment. But of course, Langley ends up on top there, 68-63. And you mentioned Michael Hausman with 24 points.
I mean, he's a beast. He probably won't be at 100% again this year, which is a shame because this summer he was probably emerging as one of the better big men in the entire area. But when you have a knee injury like that, it's impossible to come back and get. I mean, he probably won't be at full strength again until he gets back into next summer. But there aren't that many great big guys in this region right now. which gives every game Langley goes into, they have a matchup problem inside.
Yep, and Aaron Montgomery with a big game for Fairfax there as well, so things ought to get very interesting there.
Fairfax is a dangerous team. They haven't really put it all together yet, but I don't think they're a team that a lot of teams would want to face in either the district or region tournament.
Yep. And if you're Titans fans, T.C. Williams, they've really been coming on in the last 8 games or so. They were struggling early on, of course, with a big win over Robinson there. But more importantly than that, and really we saw this in the first win over Hayfield. They're getting the play from the guards and not turning the ball over, and of course they have the scores.
Well, I mean, one thing you got to like about TC is the teams they're supposed to beat, they're destroying them. I mean, that's like their second 40 or 50-point win in the last 2 weeks. They're a team that has it all. Great point guard, very good play on the perimeter. Maurice Sumter to shoot the threes, Willie Shaw inside, Levante Jeter, you saw had a big game there with 19 points. Kind of that swing man who can, like Darren Dixon, guard any position on the perimeter and probably do some work down low. I think TC, along with Herndon, right now are the 2 favorites.
Yeah.
That's also subject to this coming Tuesday because, the road to the Patriot District, anything goes through Hayfield.
Yeah. And
TC's probably got to prove they can beat them. If TC wins at Hayfield, I think it's fair to say they're the favorite coming out of that district for sure.
Yep, and they're getting good production out again, as we mentioned, out of the guards. Richard Hunter, he's got to be one of the fastest guards in the area.
Certainly, very low to the ground.
Yeah.
Not only is he not the tallest guy in the world, I think he's probably 5'6", but he gets very low to the ground. Keys their transition game. If your point guard is not comfortable handling the ball, Richard Hunter will make it a long night for them to say the least.
All right, let's take a look at another score here. Westfield and South Lakes going at it, and Westfield getting better there. Once again, a battle with Westfield. Of course, they were in the region semifinals.
That's a huge win for Westfield, simply because Westfield and Oakton right now are kind of battling for the 4th spot in the Concord District Tournament, which means you get to host the first game, and that's a play-in game basically for the region tournament. Kind of a disturbing loss for South Lakes, but South Lakes has had a tendency really over the last kind of 2 or 3 years to play to their competition. Westfield, a little bit down from last year, but a very dangerous team. A lot of good players. Maybe they don't have one go-to guy, but on any given night they have a bunch of guys who can score. Kind of a disappointing score for South Lakes.
Yep. Again, defense wins that game there as well. You mentioned Westfield, of course, are a region semifinals. And comparing that team from last year, what have they exactly lost? I mean, what is it?
They lost kind of their nucleus from last year. I put 3 seniors: Brandon Powers, who's kind of their big guy inside, Mike Cook, who's was a shooting guard, is now playing at Marymount, and the last guy's name is escaping me. Pat Carlisle, excuse me, who's their point guard, really the leader of the team. Yeah. They lose those 3 guys. You're talking about a team that hit a 3-pointer to beat Herndon in the district, quarterfinals, and then went all the way and won the district tournament. Right. Got hot at the right time before they fallen to Hayfield in the region semifinals. So they're really, to say they're rebuilding would be a stretch, but they kind of are relying on a whole new host of players this year. Dangerous team. The Concord district, it's just very tough, top to bottom. That's a tournament everyone will want to keep their eye on. I don't think any team can be looked past in that district.
All right. And the team that's also getting hot at the right time is the Madison Warhawks, with our next graphic coming up 57-54 with Fairfax.
I'd say Madison, to me, over the last 2 weeks, has probably been the most surprising team in the region. The first time they played Woodson, they lost by something like 25 points. And Johnny Ayers, who you see there, his comment after the game was, well, maybe we can cut the deficit in half next time we play them. Well, the next time they played them, they beat Woodson by 1 point, giving Woodson their first loss of the season. They've beaten in a row now, like we said, Fairfax, Woodson, and Langley, and they're alone in second place in the district. So Madison, I don't know how they're really doing it. Johnny Ayers is really a tremendous player. Junior, kind of he's the point guard for the basketball team, the quarterback for the football team, shortstop for a great baseball team this year. He played third base last year for their state title team, so it's kind of the last of a dying breed of that guy who kind of dominates in all the major sports. But they're a dangerous team. Not a very big team, but a very good guard play from Ayers, Maloney, and Jonathan Urcurio, if I pronounced that correctly. So they're a dangerous team. They've played very well lately, too.
Yeah. Now, this might be a question that's more suited for a coach right here, but how does that happen? How does a team just all of a sudden turn it on at this late stage of this season?
Are you trying to say I don't know as much as the coach?
I didn't say that. Now, we can get a coach on to talk about this as well.
I don't, but I think one of the things is, just in my opinion, the Northern Region and really high school is really a guards game. There aren't really a lot of big guys out there, so if you have great guard play and they can kind of control the flow of the game, That gives you an advantage going in any game. And Ayers, he's just a great athlete. One thing is he has really great balance. He gets to the free throw line more than any other player in the region. He's been almost 180 times, going almost 10 times a game. In a 32-minute game, to go to the free throw line 10 times a game. I mean, in the NBA, if you go 10 times a game, you're going to be in the top 3 in the league. Right. That's really impressive. And he's now started. He's always been a guy who could score. He's now started to get his other teammates involved. Even more impressive in the game in Fairfax, he was sick for that game. He had the flu and still came in and kind of got the job done. And also, some teams don't peak early. Some teams kind of catch their groove later on in the season, find a way they want to play, and kind of stick with it. And Madison's done that and been very impressive. Also 6-0 since Pete Bendorf took over as activities director. So
it has something to do with it.
They got some of that Oakton football magic on the basketball team.
And I'm sure the folks love nothing better than have that magic continue as well. Well, another team that obviously bounced back from a loss, that'll be W.T. Woodson taking care of Marshall.
Woodson's a very strong team, like we talked about earlier. 25-13. Brian Tran's kind of stepped up to be that second option. I think the only thing that could be keeping Woodson from maybe the region Final Four and beyond is they really need some of the other guys to step up in their bigger games. Their third, fourth, and fifth guys really didn't do much against Herndon, but against Marshall, the team they're better than this year, did a real strong game. And if you look at Marshall, that's 40. 23 points out of Washington, 17 out of Sappho. That's really their two main guys. They really haven't gotten help from anyone else. Kind of having a hard time dealing with the loss of Chris Hines and A.J. Wallace from last year.
Right. We talked about in W.T. Woodson a lot about Jose Olivero. Brian Tran, and what I saw in last week's Herndon loss, I mean, can be that go-to guy. It seems as though he's one of those guys when things are out of control, he makes real good decisions with the basketball.
And he was unconscious in the second quarter of that game. I think he had 15 of his 19 points, hit 4 or 5 threes, and that's what they need. Jose draws, extreme attention from the opposition. Everyone knows that, and I think down the stretch of that game, Herndon may have worn him down a little bit, or maybe just been worn out by. He carries a heavy load for that team. Right. So, like we said, what Woodson's going to need to really go that next step and kind of break their region tournament jinx that's been hanging over their heads the last few years is kind of the other guys to step up. Jose Olivero is as much of a guaranteed 25-point guy as I've seen in this region in my years covering it up here. He's going to get you 25 on virtually every single night, no matter what you do. Are his teammates going to come with him? That's really the question that the Cavaliers have to answer now and down the stretch.
All right. Let's go to another big Patriot District matchup here because West Springfield taking care of Lake Braddock. Lake Braddock, obviously, a down year.
They're down a little bit, kind of a rebuilding year. They lost really pretty much everybody from last year's team except Woody Bellamy. But, they're a dangerous team come tournament time just because of the coaching they have. Brian Meachers is a hell of a coach, and they do have some good players. They're very, very inexperienced in the backcourt. Like we said, how Madison has kind of picked it up because they have experience in the backcourt. Like Braddock is kind of struggling because they've gone with some young guys in the backcourt. Obviously that'll probably pay dividends for them down the road next year and the year after. West Springfield is a very, very strong team right now. Justin Baker has really kind of emerged as being, he was a complimentary player, I think, for them last year, really has kind of emerged as their outside threat this year. Josh Wilson maybe been a little bit erratic down low, but they have the pieces. They match up. West Springfield's a team that has a lot of big guys. Yeah. So they're a matchup problem for almost every team they play just for that reason. So West Springfield is a team that, if you're going to put your sleeper category together, like we did at our midseason hoops review with the Journal, that's one of the teams we threw in there just because they present so many matchup problems to people that on any given night they could put it all together and knock you out.
Yeah, now I've heard coaches and players say this about West Springfield. You got to kind of run around them. You can't really go through them because of that size.
Well, speaking of football, their center is Marshall Osbury, about 6'6", 330-pound guy. He's going to be playing at Virginia next year. Josh Wilson is about 6'5", probably one of the region's top 2 or 3 shot blockers. Baker's kind of provide some, that outside threat. Their guard player probably determine how far they go, especially because in the region tournament, when every possession really counts, in the district tournaments as well, guard play is held at a premium.
All right. Now, this next graphic, folks, is not a misprint right here. Okay, let's take a look at this. Yes, DeMatha and O'Connell going at it. Of course, earlier this year, 4-point win for O'Connell. I think they added a little bit more to that this time.
Like we were saying before the go, I don't think you'd ever get Joe to say this, but this was you should have hired me 4 years ago, 30-point whipping. I know we saw, Nate, this summer that in a summer league game, DeMatha lost to Hayfield when Hayfield didn't have Jamar Claxton. And the buzz around the WCAC at that time was, well, that's not the DeMatha team you're going to see on the court in the winter. Well, it is the same team, and you see what happens. The WCAC, obviously, a lot of people think it's one of the toughest top-to-bottom conferences in the country, and not much to be said about O'Connell that hasn't been said. Depth, talent, size, experience, and the fact they have no senior in their rotation, don't be surprised to see O'Connell open next year 1, 2, or 3 in the USA Today poll.
Yes, certainly. A lot of talent out of the O'Connell squad. And DeMatha, yep. Hey, listen, there's no doubt about it. It's a down year for them. Been covering this team for 8 years now, and it's a shock for the DeMatha fans, and maybe a shock for a lot of people who look at the polls right now. But again, you're in the WCAC. You have a down year, and those teams are going to punish you, particularly if you're wearing that DeMatha across the
Well, I
front.
mean, seriously, this is them taking their licks. It's kind of like when the Cowboys went down after they were so good. People took joy in throwing some dirt on the grave. So I don't think it would be shocking to see DeMatha come back pretty quickly. They have a case for recruiting. You got to kind of feel bad for their coach. Mike Jones kind of got put in a very tough situation there, but I don't think anyone's going to shed too many tears for DeMatha.
No, not for a while. All right, as we move on to girls basketball, well, I guess it's West Springfield and everybody else. Good night, everybody.
Robinson is a team that's done real well this year. T.C. Williams actually gave him a little bit of fight. T.C. Williams just really doesn't have the size to match up with Robinson. Tiffany McCain, who's Robinson's leading scorer, didn't really get into the mix that much, and you see how much they still won the game by. Robinson is a very good team under first-year coach Jim Spiridopoulos.
All right, let's move on to the next graphic up there. As we talk, Lee taking care of McLean.
Lee's had a real nice year this year. Ashley York, who transferred over from Mount Vernon, and Christy Key, who also came over from Mount Vernon, kind of giving them a nucleus. And Zena Johnson has also done real well. McLean's also been up this year. McLean beat Langley this year for the first time in a long time. Liberty District has gotten a little bit more competitive this year. Usually, like we said, West Springfield and everyone else in the region. It was Madison and everyone else in that district. Woodson actually knocked them off this year. So that's become a competitive district, and will probably a real interesting district tournament, excuse me.
Okay. Now, there's West Springfield, folks, coming up. West Springfield, of course, taking care of Lake Braddock. I mean, they seem to be unstoppable.
I don't think they seem to be unstoppable. They are unstoppable. That one loss is to Riverdale Baptist. They haven't lost to a Northern Region team for about 2 years since the region tournament. If anyone beats West Springfield from here on out in this region, it will be a colossal upset. They have size, they have experience, they have depth, they have nice-looking jerseys, they have a packed house. I mean, they are the elite team in this region right now, hands down.
And I think they're playing with a little bit of an attitude right now, given the fact that they may have been the better team on the floor against Princess Anne in the state semifinals, but they came out on the losing end there as well, and they've been taking it out on everybody since.
I think we see that in sports a lot. When a team gets very close, the next year they come back with kind of a rededicated focus. They didn't lose too many players from that team last year. Celia Monroe, the little guard, they did lose, but to have Laura Haskins to kind of step in there and take over full-time as your point guard, one of the most, a player who in her career has probably lost 5 games, including AAU, and has won national championships. And to have, like we say, it's a guards game. Well, if you have great guards and then you have a great interior game and you really have no apparent weakness, that means you're good.
All right. Now, play prognosticator and coach for me right now.
Okay.
Who more than likely would be able to knock off West Springfield in the region, and how would you do it?
I'll take the Mystics.
Okay.
Or George Mason. I don't see it happening, personally, right now. I don't see who has the mix to do it. If you're looking at teams who could do it, I guess you could say Chantilly, because they do have great guard play. Then teams like, Robinson has got a very strong team. But I don't want to sit here and say that I think they're gonna lose, because I really don't think that.
All right. Now, you know what else?
What, Nate?
What other sport has strong teams in the region?
You tell me, Nate.
Well, I tell you, it's hockey. They play it on ice. They knock each other around a little bit. It's a whole lot of fun to watch. Here's Catherine Sumner with the hockey report.
In last Friday's hockey action, Paul VI visited West Springfield. Paul VI squeaked out a victory 11-9. Every game counts for Paul VI right now, who is holding on to second place in their conference with only 1 win. Stonebridge took Langley 2-1. Mere and Fairchild each tallied for Stonebridge. Jelenic with the lone goal for Langley. On Sunday, Stonebridge was back in action. This time, Potomac Falls fell victim 4-1. Kevin Meir tallied 2 goals in this game, and Kristen Stupe with a goal for Stonebridge. Monday, Chantilly took on North Stafford, came out with a win 7-2. Chantilly's Wilkinson had a hat trick. And on Friday, you can catch Stonebridge at Westfield, Hilton at Stonewall Jackson, and Osborne at Paul VI. I'll have more coverage of these games next week. Back to you, Nate.
Thank you, Catherine. And man, I just get cold just watching it.
Riveting.
Absolutely.
Riveting television.
It's because on ice, cold ice. Okay, anyway. All right, well, back to basketball now. Coming up, of course, a lot of big games here. What are some of the featured games that folks may want to, maybe all those basketball junkies may want to go check out?
We talked about that. You got a game right here, Oakton at Herndon. Oakton is the kind of team that I don't think anybody wants to play. They play a very, very physical style. Got all 5 guys back from last year's state tournament team. The question is, will Herndon lose a game going into the region tournament, or excuse me, going into the district tournament? Oakton's going to have to find a way to slow Herndon down. No team's really been able to do that thus far. Jefferson actually slowed him down a little bit last night, but teams tend to have a hard time going all the way. The Concord District team, that's a long ride for them over to Jefferson, so I'll take Herndon in that one.
South Lakes and Chantilly. South Lakes doing fairly well right now.
They're doing all right. Chantilly, this is the last time these two teams played. South Lakes really ran Chantilly off the court. But this probably will be the game for second place in the district tournament. Second seed, excuse me. So a very important game for both teams. Probably also an important game for Chantilly in that they lost to Herndon rather convincingly. And then that was actually somewhat of a close game. But to lose to South Lakes again convincingly, I think that would kind of damage their confidence a little bit, and they would probably go into the tournament thinking they were the 3rd best team. Yeah. A win here probably does loads for their confidence and makes them actually a tournament threat.
And two teams looking for, seeding possibilities here go up against one another. This ought to be a good one, Fairfax and WT Woodson.
Well, Fairfax really needs to win this game, or they could find themselves in the 5th spot and on the road for the first round of the district tournament. Woodson pretty much have to hold serve, play the way they've been playing to this point. With the way Madison has played, though, only 2 losses in the district. Woodson really can't afford another loss. They want to lock up that first seed, but Woodson's been playing very well. Fairfax took them to the wire last time. They match up very well with Woodson, so this should be a very good Liberty District game.
Another good cross-district game. Well, I guess they're in the same district. West Potomac and West Springfield.
It's a Patriot District game.
Yeah.
West Potomac is kind of a team that's at the bottom of the district right now, and possibly venturing into the spoilers role. But West Springfield cannot afford to lose this game if they want to try and get that 2nd spot, or even the 1st spot in the district tournament. So much bigger game for West Springfield. They can't look past the rest of their schedule, look past kind of a lower division team and get upset.
The next Tuesday game that we'll have on radio, TC Williams at Hayfield, too. That ought to be a monster.
That's a colossal game. I mean, TC beat Hayfield the first time they played. This, like we said earlier, it's probably for the number 1 seed in the district tournament. These teams have owned the Patriot District and had every single Patriot District title to their credit before Lake Braddock came up and won it last year for the first time. So the winner of this game, it's very interesting with the seeding. They'll go on both in the district tournament and the region tournament. But the winner of this game, it's very possible the way it looks now. If TC and Hayfield could theoretically play 3 more times, they could play a Tuesday night. They could play in the district tournament final, and theoretically they could play in the region final if someone was able to knock off a Herndon or something like that. So it could be the beginning of something intense between these two teams, which it always is.
That's Dan Rubin. I'm Nate Lewis. This is the Fairfax Sports Report. Good night.